My name is Joshua K. Sabra Esquire, and with him as always, Dr. Miles Salisbury, and you're listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, the intersection between mental, physical, and spiritual health for those on the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. All right. You are on the air. I am your co-host, Josh, and I have my confidant, my friend, my mentor, and my therapist, Miles.
Not your personal therapist.
No.
Guten Morgen.
How are you doing, man?
Good. That was good workout. So it's daylight saving, so we got up early and then extra early, not on purpose. And we are at location at our what's title we give him? Technical director, John's house. Right now he's taking photos.
EP, executive producer.
Yeah. He's got the perfect place for it. He makes sure everything works. So today we have no technical difficulties because like last week we did, and he's here and it's all working. So we're here. He'll be in and out recording things, and then also doing some classified on location visual effects work somewhere in the world that we can't talk about because it's non-disclosure agreement land. So pretty cool. He does pretty cool stuff. But yeah, he's on double duty today. But we got up early, and he has a really badass home gym, and Josh ran us through some good mobility and leg workouts, and we are open and sore, but good primer to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I think the best way to get out of your head is into your body. And we'll bring that up in today's episode about positive mental attitude, what it is, what it isn't, how to cultivate it. But we're already 3/4 the way there, basically. We got up early, we got after it, we're hanging out with cool people, and we're doing something we care about. So dang, it's hard to mess that up. But what are you listening to this week?
Oh yeah, now that you're asking me these questions, I'm like in my car, like that song. I had two, but I'll save the next one, next podcast. It was synchronistic. So I'm still like, you make fun of me because I'm listening to like the depressing shit.
Yeah, you're emo.
Why.
You're emo right now.
Like I told you, my soul, if it can make a sound, it's like probably the music of Sigur Rós, like the most depressing shit ever, but it's so good. But I was listening to Trevor Hall and a song, You Can't Rush Your Healing. Darkness has its meaning, or something, or teachings, or something like that. It was really, it's a great song. I was listening to that. So Trevor Hall, I don't know where he's from, but he's quite good. He made it to the Shrek soundtrack once, so he must be really good.
Okay, yeah, wow, yeah. That's commercial.
Yeah.
That's commercial appeal.
There we go.
I love it. Okay, Trevor Hall. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. See, I get all kinds of cool stuff from you, so I'm going to expand my musical vocab. Yeah, but embrace it with both hands, man. Just go right into that darkness and get it all. I'm on a different track. I watched some clips of the WWE, and Hulk Hogan was on, and he was playing that Real American song by Derringer, Rick Derringer.
I don't know if I've heard it. Maybe, probably.
I'm a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. Yeah,
dude, our childhood.
Oh man,
yeah.
And I was pumped. I listened to that, and then once you cue that up on Spotify, it gives you some really good stuff. 38 Special pops up, and a bunch of rock from the 80s and 90s, and
soundtrack of Rocky, probably.
So good. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Gonna Fly, all those fun stuff. So thank you, Hulkster, for bringing it back, for coming back and giving us something awesome to listen to. And I'm actually kind of surprised that his walkout music was a real song. Did they make that after? Because most people just have like a guitar riff or whatever, but some people had actual music. I'm sure they WWE would have to pay a ton to license that,
likely,
music to pop out all the time on it. But anyways, super fun memory lane. So that's where my head's at, and this is just a great episode for me, because we were going back and forth this week about positive mental attitude, and man, this is something that I had backwards for 35 years,
Mm.
probably. Uh, and I think that we've got it down in terms of how to talk about what it is and it is not, and then go through all the mistakes that people make when it comes to cultivating a PMA, and like, how how it gets a bad rap and how people get it wrong. Cause I pretty much lived it wrong. Oh, I'm not even to say wrong. I just, if you're, if you're doing the, if you're performing some of the mistakes that we're going to get into today, where you're just not paying attention to the things in your life that are painful, or you're not letting myself go there. I'm using air quotes, like where you're like angry or upset, or if you're just focused on happy stuff, or suppressing the thing, actively suppressing negative emotions that are coming up, you create a lot of
Mm-hmm.
problems. And we're going to get into that. So I'm excited to cultivate or a deeper understanding. And I got a deeper understanding when we started to talk about it. But for the listeners, what is your personal, what's your personal definition of PMA? Like, what do you think it is? What do you think it isn't? And um, yeah, kick us off with that.
So yeah, that's going to be an important thing for people to pay attention to, because positive, what does that mean? What does it mean to everybody else? And you're asking me before what my personal definition is probably sort of a feeling of contentedness or joy. I want to be in sort of that state as much as possible. Like you said, it's not ignoring um, external events, but you don't let them dictate how you feel, if that makes sense. Um, that's probably mine. It might be, I think you got to stay away from the elusive word happiness, because, I think that's a byproduct of things like doing your purpose or your meaning. You feel happy. Uh, Accomplishing something, you feel happy. Like, I think it's a byproduct. To say you want to be happy, I think it's sort of slippery. And maybe it works for some people. For me, it's always been like, I kind of really don't know what that means 100%. Is it because I get my Porsche that I always wanted, or is it, uh, it's fleeting, But if I say gratitude, joy, optimism, contentedness, that's more has more staying power for me. So, and this can be interchangeable. You could have different ones. Like, today I'm going to practice joy. Today I'm going to practice contentedness. Today I'm going to practice gratitude. I'm going to bask in that feeling. What does that feel like? And we'll get into ways that you can rev that up. I'll give some tips and tricks on how to do that. And the good news about this whole PMA thing is you already know how to do it, and it's called negative mental attitude. We're biased towards the negative as humans. We're wired to look out for threats before the good things. Like, we'll avoid death before having sex. We'll stay alive before we have the fun stuff. Like, our brains are like, okay, sex and food is good, but let's not die first. So let's look for threats first.
The sympathetic tasks in the nervous system come before the parasympathetic tasks in the nervous system. So the
Bingo.
rest and digest comes last, the fight or flight comes first, which makes sense. If you actually are being honest about what you're fighting about, that you don't want to be taking a poop when someone's trying to kill you.
Dude, that should be a bumper sticker.
So, the positive mental attitude, if you'd like Google it, essentially it's synonymous with resilience, is what they're trying to say is,
Hmm.
um, you know, hope, optimism, courage, and kindness in the face of difficult situations, and not giving into negativity and hopelessness. So they're really, the PMA, like feeling is really about resiliency, and how you do that, what you do instead of succumbing to hopelessness. And I think people live it out in a very poor and clumsy way, and including me. We're gonna get into the mistakes that people make right now, and then I'll give you my updated definition um, at the end. But let's talk about some of the mistakes people make when it comes to positive mental attitude. And you gave me some good ones when we were getting ready for the show. There's focusing on external conditions to justify your emotions. So, like, conditional living essentially is like, a lot of times we will take in our environment and based on what's going on around us or how people feel about us, use that as our cue for how we feel about ourselves.
Correct.
And in the same token, we use the conditions around us, whether it's the money in our checking account or the amount of energy we have that day or the the amount of gas in your tank as the cue for what's possible or what we allow ourselves to feel hopeful about. And that's called conditional living. And that's the easiest one to slip into. I think we all, because the world is so, we live in such a 3D physical world that it makes sense to make decisions off that. I mean, if you only have a quarter tank of gas, you don't want to probably just get on the freeway and drive to California. That might not work out. So we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but you can make logical decisions that are based on kind of flimsy beliefs if you're doing conditional living.
Yeah. Reminds me of Joe Dispenza's work. He talks about how we think of like the same thoughts of 80%, the same thoughts of the day we did yesterday and the day before, and just that whole repetition Groundhog's Day thing. And I think you're cultivating some sort of mindset when you do that. So again, good news, you already know how to do this. But what are you doing when you do that? Are you thinking the same crap thoughts or the same meh thoughts that keep you in the same meh personality and the same meh behavior patterns? That's it. You're already practicing it. You're using extreme, like checking account's low, then I'm bad. And so you just think that and I'll do it over and over.
Or checking account's low, therefore I can't save money. When you actually
add whatever belief.
You need to save money the most when your checking account's low.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you got to detach and bring some logic to this. And emotions are trailheads, but they're not truth, and they can be very slippery. Thoughts too, but emotions especially. But we already know how to do this process. So now we're going to turn it the right direction to a positivity, PMA. I mean, a couple podcasts ago, we joked about how the Marines came in when I was in high school in the gym, and they were like, PMA, it's PMA. And like, oh, they're onto something. But now we're going to flesh it out.
It's something, yeah. It's something you do. It's just like the text that Miles just got. It's something that you actively do. You cultivate a PMA. You cultivate the silent setting on your phone and laptop.
Just did it. Sorry about that.
Subtle cues. But the Marines had it right. You execute on an attitude, on a direction, and then the feelings come after you take the action. Because if you want to feel really, I can get you depressed. I can get you depressed in an hour. I'll just keep somebody from moving, keep somebody isolated.
Crack out that 6-pack.
Have them watch the news.
Listen to country.
No. Just watch the news. You don't
just
even
watch the news. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get depressed fast. So those are your conditions. That's not who you are, and that's certainly not something that's an ingrained part of us. But it is a habit. It certainly is a habit.
Correct. So
that's like conditional living. And we'll give more examples here in a second, but I want to keep going to another piece that you brought up, which is, and I put a star by it because it's actively ignoring or suppressing different like parts of your reality and parts of yourself. So like back to the checking account analogy, if you're trying to cultivate a positive mental attitude and you have no money in your checking account, you can still have a positive mental attitude and no money in your checking account. Those two things can be true at the same time.
100%.
It's easier if you have a lot of money in your checking account.
Stupidly easier.
It's a lot easier. But if you're trying, a lot of people, including me, this is my experience. When I had no money in my checking account or my checking account was negative, I would say an affirmation. I would create a vision board and I would take a screen grab of my checking account and I would Photoshop, instead of negative, I'd Photoshop
$1 million.
No, just like 10 grand, just like something like I just wanted to
see,
yeah, something unbelievable. And I would start to, and there's utility in that, by the way, but it's not useful to just live as though you have $10,000 in your checking account.
That don't work.
But the subtle difference, you do need to believe.
That's the start. Yeah. And then that's a good segue to what I wanted to say about visualizations, because this is part of doing this process. Visualization and affirmation. Okay, we got to be really careful with affirmations. Those can be super dangerous and do the exact opposite if you don't do them the correct way. Like there's not, I won't say correct.
Well, let's get into this right now, because my next one was well, we're talking about suppressing, ignoring. You're talking about affirmations, and I've used these for negative effect. And so my experience when I was even recently, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, I got this kind of I was not feeling good. I had $1.5 million of liabilities from a business that had closed in COVID, and that's a long story. But
Get into it.
I had a couple broken arms. I was not feeling good about myself, not really sure what was next for me. And I was trying to like do an exercise, you know, of writing things that you're grateful about, like things you like about yourself, and writing out like your things that you're proud of, your proud moments in life. Well, if you're suppressing your emotions and you're suppressing reality, it's very difficult to get into. For me, I couldn't get in touch with those things. Like I wasn't really feeling proud. In that moment, I certainly wasn't feeling proud. And I didn't, like, because I was in the state that I was in, reaching back and trying to find these like things to be proud of, or things to get on my own side about, or, you know, fire up the PMA. I was really just depressed and in a lot of pain, and I was just sort of magnifying that and bringing it back to these, you know, when I'm doing the work of I think the book was like 100 wins in 100 days or something, and you're writing out all these wins. And I just felt shittier and shittier, and so I gave up after like 6-7 days. And it wasn't because those were bad exercises, but it's because I was so afraid to just be in the moment and actually sit with
the shit
that I was actually dealing with.
We got to do that too.
Yeah, and the emotional shit, the circumstances do need to change, right? You can't live, you know, you can't live disabled, and
that's why back to why visualizations can be dangerous. If you're in that state and you're saying, I'm confident, I'm happy, everything is fine, your brains will go, bullshit. And subconsciously, and then you're going to feel worse. But you can pull yourself out of that by, okay, let's say confidence is how I want to feel. Right now, if I'm saying confident, my brain's calling bullshit, right? You have to feel in your body what confidence feels like in order for the brain to start buying in, because strong emotions and memory are paired together. So if you go within and feel confident, if you don't know what that feels like, think of a person that you imagine is really confident. Whenever I think about this, I think of like Tony Robbins jumping on the stage, like the most.
Let's go back. Well, let's go back a little bit, because you're right. But if you're in pain right now, you have to feel the pain.
Yeah, I'm saying don't try to do those affirmations that I'm talking about while in that pain state. You got to work with the pain first. You got to dig into that.
I couldn't do it on my own. I'd meditated for years, and I like turned on the Headspace app, or I just couldn't sit and be. I was in physical and mental and emotional. I was in all the pain. And my buddy got on the phone with me, and he gave me a breathing exercise, and he was like, "What's your body saying right now?" And I was like, help me.
Yeah, listen to the deeper meaning. Yeah.
And I share this with you because it's okay. We're going to get to the process of generating that flywheel of emotional momentum, because we want that. You want that. But for me, and probably for you, humans don't function that much differently. If you're in a lot of pain that you can't deal with, then the desire to suppress and repress will be so great. You're not going to get to the point of the Miles started at the beginning. You're not going to get the benefit. In fact, what you'll do is you will increase the demand to disassociate will be so rabid that you're going to reach for the pills or the alcohol or all of the above. And
good luck going from there.
Yeah. Well, and it's, if you're in that state, I pray for you, because it's a very painful place. But the only way out is through that, and sitting with that. Maybe we'll come back to like dealing with physical, mental trauma or whatever, and not, because it doesn't, like, you don't fix it in one day, but you do have to
Right.
be in that conversation. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything
No.
from the cultivating the state that Miles is trying to talk us through. Okay, so I'm aware of my own stuff. I'm not suppressing my emotions now.
Should we talk about the
Let me fire up the nervous system. Go.
nervous system? Yeah. So we're getting to nervous system. That's a good segue. Before we get there, we also have to make sure our bodies are firing on all cylinders. Our sleep is dialed. We're not actively going through an addiction. We're not going through withdrawals. We're not in deep depression. Doing this will be super hard, if not impossible, if you're in a funk, you're not sleeping, you can't regulate your emotions if you don't sleep well, blah, blah, blah. You got to start getting sleep, diet, exercise in alignment. If you're going through withdrawals, like, you gotta go through withdrawals first. It's gonna be super hard to start thinking and trying to feel positive when your neurotransmitters are like, go fuck yourself. Yeah, it's so hard. It doesn't mean you can't start the process, and maybe you should on the side, but you also got to tend to like you said, the pain, the wounds, what's going on, why am I hurting? And I'm sleeping 5 hours a night. That's why I'm irritable. Like, let's start getting those dialed. That'll make this process so much easier. If you're super depressed, it's going to be so much harder. You're coming off with in addiction and withdrawals. That's going to be really hard. You got to go through. The only way is through, like you said, you got to go through that first. So nervous system, yes.
And it's not, it isn't that complicated. It's actually pretty intuitive, because when you're filling up your tank, if you can't see me, I'm holding up, my hands in two different thermometers. If the pressure gets higher and higher and higher, and there's no accommodating supportive activities. So you're hungry, but if you're not eating food that is satiating and nutrient dense and healing and restorative, then that's another stress that you're compounding the pressure that you're putting your body under. So if I am in a lot of physical pain, a lot of mental pain, and if you're a human, you probably already have both. If you're not giving yourself the resources to recover from that or to deal with that, then the stress isn't doubled, it's like 10x.
Yes.
And the same thing with sleep. Like, getting 5 hours of sleep a night is you're a different person if you get 8 hours of sleep. It's like the levers move so much longer. That's essentially what my whole business, shout out to joshsabracoaching.com. That's what my whole business is. I don't train anybody harder. We just get 10 times the results because we get more from every rep. And we get more from every rep because we're doing those holistically nurturing things that allow you to recover and actually get the fruit of your labor. So that's what restoring the nervous system isn't complicated. You're tired, sleep. You're hungry, eat really good food. Have good conversations with good friends. Hydrate, get mineralized, have fun, do those things, and your resiliency, you're cultivating your PMA automatically at that point, because you're empowered. You're giving yourself something, a powerful launch pad.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those things, then you can't meditate your way out of hunger. Can't meditate your way out of sleep deprivation.
Yeah, hour in a bad diet, same kind of idea.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because the physical part of it is so much of it. I used to be kind of addicted to video games and alcohol. I've probably been addicted to everything, but
Heroin?
Okay, not every single thing, but I was looking up the dopamine diet. Someone was talking about, like, on a podcast. Someone mentioned
Is it a book?
No, it's no. I think
Process.
it was like a part of a diet.
Is it dopamine fast? Is that whole
No. It's just a diet to help you naturally restore dopamine levels.
Yeah. Okay.
And I looked it up, and it was like, it was basically like a detox diet.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was like
yeah.
very few inflammatory food,
Process of elimination.
a lot of protein, a lot of good healthy fats,
Mhm.
and some carbs. And it was like, oh, I basically, this is kind of what I kind of like the cookie cutter thing I start with when I work with myself or clients.
Mm.
And when you do that and you sleep, it like these problems really do not start to solve themselves. That makes it sound oversimplistic.
We're getting better fuel.
But you don't even have the puzzle pieces to finish the puzzle if you don't have these things.
Exactly.
So you know, you do have to have some competency in putting these pieces together, but it's so much, you can't do it without them.
Mhm.
So you
You can
have
do
to,
lots of negative mental attitude though.
yeah, you certainly will have to cultivate, you have to cultivate the physicality part to get the mentality part.
Boom. Good tagline. Yeah, that's your coaching
100%.
philosophy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Um, yeah. So we were just talking about suppressing, ignoring. You talked about affirmations. That threw us into the whole, are you, am I actually giving myself what I need? And if you don't have these things, you really can't succeed.
Mhm.
But then, let's go a little bit deeper because, I also think, go ahead.
Did you want to go back and deeper into like how to start cultivating this practice? Because I was going to back into the visualization and affirmations bits, meditation bits.
Well, I want to go to let's go to them, keep through and go through the mistakes. Cause I want to make sure
Okay.
that like people know what not to do. So
Okay.
we're not conditional living. We're not suppressing or ignoring. That was kind of the big one. We are not only seeing the good and the positive. We're not selectively paying attention to things,
Key points.
because that's kind of like what spiritual bypassing is, right?
100%. Yeah.
You're like, oh, everything will work out in the end. You just got broken up with. Yeah, but it's for the best.
God wills it.
But you actually have to feel the pain. Now, I mean, we all know these people that they broke up with someone mentally a year before they broke up with them. So they're really not mourning. They were sad while they were with that person for the entire year. So they actually already got all their grief out of the way.
That's kind of like a genius move in a way. That's kind of fucked up. It's like kind of like the like withdrawal process early, like tapering. Like that's kind of messed up. It's messed up for your partner, but like, yeah, you're like one day you're just like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's selfish in the best and the worst ways, because it's like that thing of I can't bear to tell this person the truth.
Yeah.
But that really means you don't respect them.
You don't want to hurt them, but you don't respect them, man. And or respect yourself.
That's right. I I dated a girl in high school who, and high school relationships go so fast, right? It's like, I think this was like a 4-week relationship.
That was like 3 years back then to our brains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So much happens in a week.
Yeah.
But so she was very nice to me. And like so many of my friends like gave me rides everywhere, and she was dropping me off at my house one afternoon or one evening. And, I just got the vibe, and, you know, like I said, time flies so fast. So this was like, the day ago it was hot and heavy, and then today it was just, she was not really there. She was just like giving me a ride, and just the way she said like, all right, I'll pick you up in the morning, kind of like it was like a job, like this is just a routine.
Yeah.
And I just stopped and looked at her and I was like, you know, you don't have to do that. And she was like, oh no, but you're my boyfriend. And even the way she said that wasn't really, I was like, you know, you don't have to be my girlfriend, like we don't have to date. And she was like, oh.
Isn't like a thing.
And I was like, yeah, you're cool. Like I'm cool. Like we don't, it's gonna be okay. Like it's fine. And we broke up just because I proffered the idea that we didn't need to be together. And she could have been mailing it in the whole time. I have
like
no
a
idea.
couple more years.
Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I would just, but the thrill was gone. And so that was a fun experience. You learn really early on. You have to read people really well, otherwise you could invest a lot of time.
That's the gifts of trauma too. We got taught to read people really well because of our household environments, for better or worse. This is a superpower we learned. Like
it's a benefit of
temperature in the
enmeshment.
Yeah, you unenmeshed there, so very well done.
So only seeing the good, Pollyanna, and whipped cream on garbage, which is like, it's gonna be okay, or I'll make the best of a bad situation when the foundation is shit. Whipped cream on garbage is like it's like a term that I look at in the business and in the fitness realm equally, where people have a bad strategy, but they're executing it really well. Like,
Mm.
um, your landing page is really well put together, but your offer is terrible, or you're squatting a lot of weight, but
Your form is shit.
you don't have good form.
Mm.
It's like, cool. You need to rehab your hip before you do any more squats. But people are so focused on executing well that
Mm.
they want to get the gold star
Mhm.
before they want to take it back to the lab.
Man, you can get more stars in the future if you're not careful.
And this goes back to the mistakes. The reason why we are making this, I make these mistakes. The reason why I did all this is when I was in that place of being really sad, depressed, and unable to like connect with myself and cultivate this PMA, it's because I had a lot of attachments. We'll get into your action steps at the end of here. But it'll be difficult to accept what is if you're if I'm when I'm attached to what this situation says about me. What does it mean that I have a negative checking account? Does that mean I'm a bad person, or I'm stupid, or I'm whatever? No, it just
It just
means
is.
that I had $150 charge come in when I only had $75 in the checking. That's all that means.
Stay objective about it.
And what does it mean to get dumped? What does it mean to not have, like, to close a business? What does it mean to all these things? If that we have attachments to them, are really natural to have, because we get excited about things. We love people. We don't want them to
Mhm.
leave our lives. We
Mhm.
love the way it feels to to squat, or to sprint, or whatever.
Start pairing our
And if
identity.
we can't do it, well, if we can't do it, sometimes we think we're removing our sense of ego, like where like my competency is being reduced
Yep.
because I can't do this today, or so it really quickly attacks our identity. And so
Yep.
that's those attachments to things are really what was blocking me, and they might be the thing that is blocking you when if you're in this state where you're not actively cultivating a positive mental attitude because you're a little bit too delusional. A little bit of delusion is good, though. So we're getting at that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's that's a very good point. Yes.
So the consequences of whipped cream on garbage, suppressing your feelings, only seeing the good, or conditional living, the consequences are, well, for me, it was a rabid demand to disassociate. So instead of being able to like actually function, I was so I was craving so badly to drink or play video games, or watch porn, or anything I could do to change my state so I didn't have
Mm.
to feel what I was feeling.
Mhm.
And it had to be fast and powerful. And then
Yes.
I very quickly became immune to all that anyway. And it didn't stop working. But not only that,
Ain't that a bitch?
I wasn't actually changing. So if I'm not paying attention to how I'm really feeling, I'm not actually changing my behavior, or my response to the environment, and nothing is actually getting better. So, or the things that are hurting me are not getting better. And then because of those two things, from disassociated and I'm not changing, you stop caring about inputs. So when I was repressing and, numbing and doing all these things, I couldn't get excited about an opportunity because I had spent so much energy numbing out my sense of drive, or self, or hope. Or you can't numb a negative emotion and not numb a positive one too. You just numb your emotional. For me, my whole emotional body was
Yeah. You
numb.
just take that out.
So then I stopped caring about.
Everything.
Yeah. And it was very difficult to even, if I'm not caring about myself, it's very difficult to care about other people. I stopped calling people on their birthdays, and stopped just being engaged. And that's where that's like, we're on a slippery slope. We're already 3/4 of the way to the end of the road. If you're, don't give a shit about yourself, you're not engaged with the world, you don't think anything good's going to happen to you, you're out of hope. And I wasn't able to get on my own side, and I wasn't able to like feel a sense of pride or self-love about any of the things that I had done when I was trying to do that exercise, because it was still, one, I'd repressed all my emotions and feelings, and two, I still had all these entanglements of resentment about what had happened to me. And it's like I couldn't feel like a sense of accomplishment or personal power in my own resilience or creativity, because I was still angry that I even had to be in that situation, and I was resentful of the the forces that put me in there in that way.
Mhm.
So that's just like you just as DMX said, the late great DMX, in his last interview with Talib Kweli, he said, "You start walling up parts of your past, parts of yourself, parts of your mind, and you keep throwing up walls and barriers, and pretty soon there's no more room. There's nowhere left to build, and you're out of options."
Yeah, it sounds like you put yourself in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly
Your
right.
own jailer.
Man. Yeah. R.I.P. DMX. He's the man. My favorite youth pastor.
Yeah?
That's what he did the last 5 years of his life. He's on Instagram reading the Bible.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow, total 180.
He
Or
he always was trying to get into scripture. He wanted to be a reverend, and his friends were like,
it's not cool.
well, no. They were just like, why don't you get clean and sober first?
Ah, right. Those kind of practice. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, his friends were like, hey, check into
Yeah.
rehab and then we'll see.
Then we'll talk.
Yeah, and it's good. Thank you. Yeah, you had to have those friends who are like, hey, I know you want to be a youth pastor, but why don't you not be high on crack?
Probably would help. Yeah. Different kind of spiritual experience. What got him? What took him out? I had no idea.
Maybe an overdose. He'd just checked into rehab the year
Oh,
before. He got out of rehab later that year. So
fucking addictions, man.
probably OD'd. He was using very hard drugs for a very long time. He has a very, very crazy story. Grew up in an orphanage. Just
trauma.
Yeah, really. He's one of the few that when they say like we lived on the streets, he was really living on the streets.
Legit on, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, he came a long ways, I would say, despite all that.
Yeah, he got a lot done.
Mm-hmm.
He got pretty far. I wonder if he felt proud.
I wonder. I bet you had fleeting moments, but man, that negative mental attitude or addictions or those wounded parts we don't tend to, that take us back down to that path of addiction. Because the damn thing about addictions is like for a fleeting moment, it fucking works. It turns all that shit off. But the blast radius is just so far every time you use it because your tolerance goes up. You need more, and the blast radius gets more and more. You start taking out your friends and family and everything, and then you OD or you suicide. It's fucked.
Yeah, I was at a wedding in 2006, and I was in line to get a cup of beer. I was in line for the keg, and this guy was standing behind me, and he was probably in his 30s, and me and my buddy were 4 or 5 beers in. We were getting after it, and we were like, "Hey, you in line? Do we cut in front of you?" And he was like, "No." He's like, he like looked at the keg, and he was like, "Alcohol's already done everything it's going to do for me."
Fascinating.
That's what we said. Me and my buddy, we looked at each other like, what must that be like?
Limits. Boundary.
Well, I think I think he knew what his needs were getting met from that, and he realized it, and that's wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of my life, I didn't have any idea why I could drink 12 drinks in a row, and it was never enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's chasing the dragon at some point. That's the bitch of addiction.
It's also fun to be a psychopath.
That's not a psychopath.
It's fun to be a wild man.
Wild man, there you go.
All right. So we covered mistakes, the consequences of those mistakes. My personal definition of the PMA is having an outcome-oriented mindset. Hey, buddy.
Just getting the neighbor dogs walking by. Paddington, what are you looking at, buddy?
That's the dog.
Did your friend show up?
That's a great name.
Yeah. His buddy's Barrington, who goes on a walk.
Paddington and Barrington?
Yeah, he's looking for Barrington.
Like Barrington Bear?
Yeah, this dog is like it's hilarious as them together. This dog is like I could saddle up on that dog. Anyways,
the so my definition of PMA is having an outcome oriented mindset and language about the world. So it isn't ignoring the negative or the positive. It's focusing only on what's useful to solve the problem at hand or to get where you're trying to go. So you talk about your negative checking account or your broken arms or whatever. It's not ignoring them. It's just acknowledging what is going on and how it fits and relates to what needs to happen next, or what your objective is. So it's not like saying I can't. Sometimes I'm a big fan of not saying I can't, not labeling yourself as unable to do something or unwilling, whatever it is. However, it's true that if you would have asked me to play racquetball 2 years ago, I would have had to say I cannot yet play racquetball.
It literally can't work.
And I think it's very hard, just like it's hard to admit what you can't do or to say no. Part of it is just admitting that there's a gap there, willingness to pay attention to the deficit. And even if you don't know how to solve it, like I don't know how to fix a broken, I'm not a surgeon. I don't know how to fix a broken radius. It's a bone in your arm, but I do know it's possible. And it's okay if something is possible and you don't know the how, as my mentor James Wedmore likes to say, F the how for now. Just focus on the outcome and acknowledge where you're at, because you need to know where you're starting from to get to somewhere on the map. But ask the question. If you sit in the question, what would need to be true for me to be able to play racquetball? Well, I would need to have a titanium plate with 7 screws in my radius. Turns out that was the how, but I didn't know that. And so being excited and committed to the outcome and detached from the how is my version of PMA.
Let's go.
And I would add into that a little bit of delusion. Just enough, just a little bit of, this is why I'm not an anti-alcohol person. I think you give yourself one drink, you play better pool. You just need a little bit more confidence to take a risk.
Unless you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
All right.
There's no just one.
You always have to take the fun out of everything.
I always got to bring the psychologist into the conversation.
But I think I need a little bit of delusion about what's possible for myself, because it creates a context. Like one of my physical goals is kind of to be an NCAA halfback with that sort of build and like training process and speed and strength in body composition. Now, obviously, it's too late. I'm not going to be in the NCAA or the NFL. Or obviously, I'm not going to play any sport at a competitive level. However, in my mind, is there a chance like that I could, be in a competitive rugby league or a competitive?
Hell yeah.
Of course. Right. So in my mind, like, now, is that delusional? I don't know. It just like, I round up. Just round up is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be a huge, I think you don't want to lie to yourself, but like I play in a world where I'm an elite level athlete, and I have expectations. I have a standard for how I show up and how often I train and how I eat and how I sleep, that it improves every area of my life. Even if it's a little bit delusional, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you give those prime years to the Army Airborne, by the way.
Yeah,
they got full advantage of prime Josh.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Jumping out of airplanes is
different kind of adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Tour of Afghanistan.
Yeah, no, I was committed to other things. But what's the takeaway? So positive mental attitude is a holistically helpful way of going, and you don't need anything. In fact, to get to the PMA, most of the time you just have to let shit go. And the process for getting into that, we've already kind of hinted at it because we told you all the things not to do. If you're not suppressing and ignoring, then you're actually present, right? You talked about there's a mindfulness capacity to this.
Mindfulness and meditation, if you can start that practice, it's like supercharging the whole thing, because you can pay attention to what the heck is going on inside of you and outside of you and make a decision rather than letting things dictate that decision. So yes, that's a good foundational practice. I can say your next thing and I can keep adding on.
Yeah. Well, and with that, attachments, noticing what you're attached to. The things that I yeah, after, a decade, or not decade, feels like 100 years, but it's probably 3 years of like consistently well executed therapy on my part.
Mm.
I can more finely tease apart the difference between providing someone empathy and not wanting to let go of a relationship that doesn't serve me. And those two things are both equally important, because if you're a kind person, a lot of times I want to provide a human experience. Like when people reach out to me, I want to be kind to them and I want to be empathetic and I want to love them, from a distance. And at the same time, that's also gotten me into a, n- a codependent or let's say toxic caretaking style relationships where if I'm not solving someone's problem or being an empath to them or providing them a kindness they won't provide themselves, then I don't really have a relationship with that person. So the right answer for me is I just need to let that go. But I'm not aware of any of that if I'm not sitting with my own feelings, noticing my own attachments and what about this engagement with another person is problematic or difficult. So I think it dovetails into what you just said about the cultivating presence and really, whether you're doing it for 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, but being with yourself.
Super important. Yes. So then you can, the Tibetans say gum for meditation. It means familiarization, just to familiarize yourself the way your mind works. And you gotta kind of know that before you're going to decide how you want to feel. Like, well, how does this internal, external state thing even work in the first place? So you practice, typical, like follow your breath, notice your thinking, come back to the breath, meditation, shamatha or samadhi. If it's Pali versus Sanskrit words for the same thing, is where you start. And then you have the vipassana or vipassana, which means insight, which comes later. When you get to periods of rest where you can notice your thoughts and come back to the breath, at the vipassana insight part comes up, and that's like a deeper aha kind of feeling state. It's self energy, as they say in internal family systems. And you get to there, you're really noticing what's deeply going on rather than the monkey mind, discursive mind. That's where all the negative mental attitude stuff springs from. It's your wounded parts in IFS. They're just talking. Well, you got to pay attention to them. And so you want to do that. You want to see them say, I see you, but hey, let's bask in this state of optimism today. I'm gonna bring you along. I know you're hurting. I know, like, yeah, we're checking accounts over John. It sucks. I know it's scary. I get that. But hey, let's bask in optimism though, right? Like, you're still there, but let's just feel this state of optimism. And this is a point where people will do the affirmations, I am rich, and your brain goes, fuck you. You're dumb. No, you're not. You must bring in the feeling state of whatever it is you're trying to cultivate. Your brain just will not get it because it will fall on the information and the history you have prior to that experience. Like if you've always felt pessimistic, it's just going to default to that. It's like, fuck's optimism. We're going back to pessimism land. So I want to cultivate optimism. Okay, what does it feel like to be optimistic? And you go there within your body. Where in your body do you feel optimism? And if you're listening to this right now, go within. Where do you think of the word optimism? Where do you feel it in your body? Good. And those that you can't, well, that's probably because you haven't gone there a lot. Think of someone in your life that seems optimistic all the time. Or if you're thinking of someone who is courageous or brave, let's go back to Tony Robbins. Like, I want to be courageous. Like, imagine stepping into Tony Robbins' shoes. What does that feel like in your body? All right, now you're getting a trail hit. Now you can feel that. So if you can't do it yourself, use somebody else. But either way, go there and start feeling that feeling. And then after you do your 10, 20 minutes of meditation, do this meditation for 10 or 20 minutes. Sit there and feel what positive mental attitude, as according to your own definition, you want to feel. And if you do that every day for 10 to 20 minutes, your brain will start looking for ways to make that happen in the real world. And this will be something to talk in our next podcast about, like visualization frequencies and manifesting, like it's not really the secret, but like, how to make that work for you. This is one of the ways we can do that, but we'll get into that in the next podcast.
What's your relationship with that? How's your practice going with managing your state and your IFS work?
So yeah, so I use Headspace, or not Headspace, I used to use Headspace. Waking up, sometimes I have to put it to 20 minutes because we put it on 10. He does talk a lot, and it's like, interrupts my flow. I just want to like go back to the breath. Sometimes I put the timer on. But if you put it to 20 minutes, there are more gaps in silence. So I try to do that, come back when I'm thinking. It's just, it's called touch and go in the practice. I want you to touch on a thought. Oh, I'm thinking about pizza. Interesting. And go. Okay, back to the breath. It's that balance. You don't kick it out and you don't get hooked and go down rabbit holes. Sometimes you will. And if you notice you're doing even that, that's no meditation. You've noticed. If you did nothing but think all the time and you get off your cushion and you reflected like, man, I thought a lot. You just meditated right there in that second. You noticed you were thinking as you got off the cushion, even that one tiny insight, that's meditation. Notice.
So what I heard you say is you use the waking up.
What I heard you say is get to the fucking point. Yes, that's a good foundational practice. So I do that. And then I do exactly what I just said before. I bring the feeling state I want to cultivate.
How long do you do that for?
About 10 or 20 minutes.
Every day?
I'm not consistent. That's the other thing. You got to be consistent. Not every day. Having kids is, you got to get up early. Kids will make that a little harder. But, they're joint optimism. They're also stressful. Yeah. So
that was good.
You try to do that. There's also a lot of like Joe Dispenza has a lot of research books and meditation CDs on this stuff too. He has a whole different take, but like he has one that is a morning and evening meditation, and he kind of talks you through this sort of process in a way. So I've used that sometimes as well. And then, and some of the more recent podcasts, I've been kind of in a funk, a little depressed, seasonal affective disorder. That's made this a lot harder to do for sure.
The meditation part?
Everything. Cultivating a PMA.
Yeah.
It's just like you got to get good sleep, got to work out to fight this stuff. To the foundational stuff, you got to put good fuel in the system for your car to run smoothly. So it's gotten a little bit better. But when you're running PMA really well and it's shit outside it and you want to feel optimistic, you will. You would be like, yo, it's shit outside it, but I still feel joy.
Doing something you're proud of is a great way to execute PMA, and also a good way to end the podcast with the things: mindfulness, notice your attachments and address them, and let go of the ones that aren't serving you. To give yourself time. And I also, and using apps is a great tool, getting these guided meditations, because it's, as you pointed out, you'll notice yourself intellectualizing, but also expanding your understanding of what this process really is. And then you can go back and do it without the audio. You
totally
just set timers.
Yep, you know how to do it.
But I also I think doing a live workshop or a breath workshop is a really valuable tool because my most profound growth, this is probably why I have a job, because my most profound growth is with other people. When somebody is creating a safe space and expanding my awareness with me, I'm borrowing from their nervous system to be with the difficult things. And also, like most of the time, I find myself emotionally, at least in my younger days, by that I mean every day before this morning,
You've transformed.
I find myself in a dark room. It's not that I'm not present in the room. I just literally don't know there's anything else in there. And then when I'm with another person, they turn on the light and say, this is a chair, this is a book. Inside of this book are thousands of ideas. And it rapidly expands what you're even aware of. And it's something that's difficult to do on your own. If you're one of those people that can do it, awesome. I'm not. I need to practice. I need a teacher. I need a guide. And
Super helpful.
I also, now I think about, like, that's probably why I have a job, because anything I can teach you, you can learn on YouTube. But there's something about getting the reflection, the real time mirrored neurons of someone
Oh, yeah.
saying, like, that's correct, you're doing it right. This is supposed to be painful.
It's a thousand times better. Yeah. Yeah, that's why doing group meditation sometimes feels a lot more powerful than meditating on your own. It's weird. It's mystical. Can't explain it. I'm sure someone can explain it. I can.
Well, we're going to get into the mystical part about that, because our segue to our next episode is the reticular activating center
So
and RAS,
yeah.
RAS, reticular activating system. That makes more sense too. And its ability to change what you actually see in the world, because what your nervous system is primed to recognize as part of what you're trying to create, what your goal is, it'll begin to be a more salient part of your reality. And when that occurs, your world will start to change. And it's not magic, but it certainly does impact your vibe. It impacts your the questions you ask, the people you hang out with, which is essentially the quality of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't come until you are at least able to access the PMA some of the time.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, this will dovetail nicely to the next podcast. Until then, y'all, we're out.
Peace.